so the premise of the Net Zero Challenge is to see if we can use open data to advance climate action. It's a global competition to support innovative, scalable uses of open data that do one of four things. We're looking for ideas about understanding climate risks, tracking climate progress, enabling informed climate action, or evaluating climate impact. There's a prize. The first round of the Net Zero Challenge has a $1,000 prize for the best pitch. And the Net Zero Challenge is a project of the Open Knowledge Foundation. As I said before, it's funded by Microsoft and the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. The application process. So the deadline for applications is the 12th of March, which is about 2.5 weeks away. Deadline is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so that's San Francisco time. There's a link on the website, which is netzerochallenge.info. But I've also pasted the link here. It's a Google Doc form. We've tried to make it as simple as possible for people. We want you to share some basic information about your idea or your concept in that Google form. We will then assess the forms and identify the strongest candidates, and then invite you to a pitch challenge, which will take place mid-April. In which we encourage you to present your idea in a 3-minute pitch. So that's by Zoom, and you can do a pre-recorded pitch, or you can do it live. We encourage you to do slideshows. We want you to be able to communicate your idea in 3 minutes. And the winner of that competition will win $1,000. So the most important thing to focus on if you're thinking of applying for the Net Zero Challenge is the challenge statement, which is how can you advance climate action using open data. So if you have any questions about your approach, the solution that you're proposing, the first thing I would suggest you do is always go back to this challenge statement. Look at the challenge statement, see if your solution responds to the challenge statement. And if it does, then you're probably on the right track. It's really key that your proposed concept or solution fits into one of these 4 categories. And we're going to ask you to identify which one it fits into. So have a think about which category your concept or your project fits into. It can fit into more than one of these 4 categories, but it's very important that you identify that for us. So have a think about your project before you submit, and see how it responds to these 4 criteria. The key thing is we're very open-minded about your approach and methodology. The purpose of a challenge prize is to find an answer to a question that we don't have the answer to. If we knew what the answer to this question was, we would do a different approach. But we don't know what the solution is. We don't know what brilliant work is out there, what great ideas people have. And so we're very open-minded about how your project responds to the challenge statement. The challenge statement is really broad. So we've tried to make the application process as open and as flexible as possible. So if your project responds to the challenge statement and it fits into one of those 4 categories, then we're probably interested. So the assessment criteria, here are the 2 primary criteria. The primary criteria are, does it answer the challenge statement? Second one is, does it fit into one of the 4 categories? Then we move on to kind of secondary criteria, which are still very important, but will have less weight in the assessment process. So your idea has to be explainable, and that's the purpose of a pitch challenge. You have to be able to summarize it in 3 minutes in language that a person who's not familiar with your project, but has some familiarity with open data and climate change, that they will understand it in 3 minutes. It should be technically achievable, so we don't want to hear hear projects that are technically impossible. They're not valuable. We're also interested in projects that are easy to use or easy to integrate. So standalone tools that are very easy to integrate would be very strong candidates. And we're also interested in projects that are scalable. So your concept might be for, your concept for your project might at the moment be a very small scale. It might just be an idea. You might have a vision for a small scale pilot. But we're really interested in projects or ideas that are in theory scalable, because that's how we're likely to maximize impact. So that's a summary of the Net Zero Challenge. I really encourage you to go to the website, which is netzerochallenge.info. That has we spent a long time crafting the language on that website, and it should provide a lot of context and supporting information, which will help guide your application. There's also some FAQs on the website, so have a look at those. And if you have any questions about the Net Zero Challenge, do put them in the chat here. We'll answer them today in the Q&A session, but we'll also include them in the updated FAQs on the website. We also have an email address, so that's netzero@okfn.org. You're welcome to, after this meeting, if you have further questions, you're welcome to email us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So that's a quick summary of the Net Zero Challenge. Next, I'm going to invite Nati from the Open Data Charter to talk about the document that really inspired this challenge, which is the Open Up Climate Change Guide. Thanks, Nati. Over to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Let me go through the process of sharing my screen.
Great.
I think James, I need you to, okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Nati Karfi. I'm the Deputy Director for the Open Data Charter. I'm now based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, so good morning from my perspective. I'm going to introduce the work that we've done on climate action, building up this Open Up guide on climate action and the implementations that we did. Just to let you know about one project on open data using open data for climate change. With the mantra that effective climate action requires open data, we've started a collaboration with the World Resources Institute to try to understand which would be the key data sets that governments should open in order to work with open data to tackle climate change. So the idea behind it was to understand and unlock the public value that was actually locked up in the reports that most of the Paris Agreement signatories actually create. The Paris Agreement has a really strong reporting component, but governments create the data and share the data within the UN system, but they don't necessarily open up that data. So we know there's data out there that can be open and create added public value. So what we did was create this Open Up guide and then test drive it in 2 countries, in Chile and in Uruguay. So we had 2 objectives. One was to test drive the Open Up guide, this document that we created with the World Resources Institute, and also help out Chile and Uruguay on their quest to open this data up, and also understand how the community, the climate change community and the open data community could actually collaborate in this matter. What types of data does the Open Up guide have? So you can see here the core 8 types of data that the Open Up guide actually works on. You'll see the Open Up guide is in the webpage of the Open Data Charter. I will share it with you through the chat room in a bit. You'll see it's about 73 data sets. These are the 10 hot topics, core topics that we worked on. As you can see, it's not just about data that is created by the environmental ministries or environmental or climate change offices. Climate change data actually goes horizontally throughout a bunch of ministries within every administration. So coordination and collaboration among ministries is super important. So you have transport data, you have electricity data, that actually in most of the administrations that we worked with actually is data that is created by other offices that don't have to do with specific environmental policies. The same goes for agricultural data. So one of the challenges and one of the cornerstones of this project was to help out with this internal collaboration in order to be able to publish this data. Because as I said, this topic and most of the topics, but these topics runs specifically horizontally throughout the different ministries within each of the administrations. What we did is try to map out of these 70-something data sets, try to map how each of these countries did in an open data perspective. So what we evaluated was these 15 things. So is the data published in a portal? Is it available? Is it updated? Does it have an open license? Is metadata available? So we run first from an outsider perspective, try to understand how citizens could find this data and understand this data. And then we did an internal work with governments to see which data was already digitalized, but not necessarily open. And we run this mapping exercise, this inventory creation in both countries. And it was interesting to see the picture that we had in order to be able to start our work with other ministries and with civil society organizations from each of the countries. This is the timeline that we used for this project. So we first, of course, published the Open Up Guide. As I said, this tool that has around 72 data sets that each country should publish in order to tackle climate change using open data. That was the work that we did with the World Resources Institute. Then on the second phase, we did the mapping exercise of core data, but we also held in-depth interviews with key actors, so governmental actors and also civil society organizations, to understand the demand of data and to understand the connections that existed or didn't exist between government and civil society organizations, kind of to understand the community. With that information, understanding how the data goes and understanding how the data goes and how the connections between the community existed or not, we held a workshop. The workshop was done pre-COVID, so it was an in-person workshop in both countries to define which were the priorities for that country. So within the climate action work, which is the cornerstone, which are the priority policies that each country was working on. So understanding which data was actually a priority for publication, which data needed a little bit more of work and needed a little bit more of time in order to be able to publish. So we did this prioritization workshop, working with public officials and civil society organizations, both from the climate change world and the open data world. And it was interesting to see how they actually connected maybe for the first time. So we mixed up everybody in groups and we held these discussions. It was super interesting to see what happened. Then on phase 4, what we did is actually create a help desk to support the opening of the data, of the prioritized data. So each government had support from technical teams to help them open up the first phase of data, and both countries actually published the prioritized data. And then what we did the last it's in Spanglish, sorry, Paso Cinco. So the phase 5 of this project was actually we went into COP25 to introduce what we were doing. There were a lot of signatory countries that were looking for solutions for the new enhanced Article 13 of the Paris Accord, which actually asks governments to be innovative in the way they report. So we did a panel on this project on open data for climate action, and we actually had a lot of participants trying to figure out if this was the innovative way of publishing data that they were being asked for. We also did different events to evaluate reuse of the data that the countries were opening up. As we say, just open the data is not enough. You need to promote the reuse of that data. So we did different events to promote the reuse. And we did a final report for each of the countries with a publication plan for mid and long term. So of course, this project eventually was going to end. So what we did is we developed a document for them to know the next steps, to understand which are the priorities. And so each of the countries has now a publication plan that goes well beyond this project to publish the rest of the data that was discussed. This is a photo from the event in COP. We actually, I've never been to COP before. It's a massive event, and I don't know, there's around 50 panels at the same time, and we actually had around 40 people there. So it was interesting because we had a lot of governmental, as I said, a lot of governmental officials approaching us after the panel to understand how open data could help with their reporting obligations. And I guess that's it. I'm just going to be here for the Q&A. So thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nati. That's really great. I think what's most inspiring, I think, to me about the Open Up Guide is the kind of path-setting role that it has, and that it draws a line around the kind of scope of climate relevant data, and which is critical, I think, for the Net Zero Challenge, because it shows the scope of the data that we're interested in being open, and we're interested in that open data being used in the Net Zero Challenge. So I wonder next if we have any questions or from our participants. If anyone has a question, Stephen, do you want to facilitate?
Please, if you've got any questions, Nati, thank you for dropping the links. And if you share the link for the Open Up Guide as well, that'd be brilliant. But yeah, please, if anyone's got any questions, if you drop them in the chat now, then we can have a look and see how I can answer those. Just while we're giving people a bit of time to do that, people might be interested to know that it's Open Data Day is coming up next week on Saturday, the 6th of March. And there are a large number of kind of environmental data events and climate data events happening all around the world. So if you go to opendataday.org, you can find all of the events that are happening there. And there might be some people you want to reach out to, or some other events happening. And there's lots of remote events, unfortunately, happening this year because of COVID. But it means that people can join them from anywhere. So there's lots of ones that are all highlighted on the Open Data Day website, which I've just shared in the chat. So we'll just give people a little while to say if we've got any questions. But yeah, so there's resources on there as well that on the homepage we have partnered with various people who are very who release or advocate around climate data and environmental data. So in the resources section on the Open Data Day website, there's also some resources from organizations like the World Resources Institute that Nati mentioned. where you might want to look to get kind of inspiration, or to find some of the data that you could work with, or to look for ideas and things that other people are doing. So there's some great information kind of around, and definitely I know that there's a large number of environmental data events happening next Saturday all over the world. So some of them are in the run up to Open Data Day, but a lot of them will be happening on that Saturday itself. No questions yet, so maybe you've covered everything. We'll just give people a couple more minutes just to see if there's anything that does come up. And as James said, if there's anything that you think of after this meeting, then if you go on the Net Zero Challenge website, you can find the email address to get in touch with us, or there's other ways to reach out. You can reach out to us on Twitter, for example. Yeah.
That was quite comprehensive. Okay, well, if we don't have any questions, hello, Katie. Hi, Katie, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Ah, great.
So Katie's saying, for our project, we'll be needing much more than $1,000 for a data collection system. We'll just wait and see if there's more to the question after that. James, can you see that question there?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. That's a really great question. The Net Zero Challenge launched on January the 29th. So it's only been a project for, we're going to be live for the last 3 weeks. We hope that this is just the first phase of a long project. We have funding at the moment from our funding partners, Microsoft and the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office for this first phase. And that is the $1,000 prize for the best pitch in the pitch contest. We're hoping to extend the project into a second phase, which would be a prototyping phase, where we work with the winner of the first Net Zero Challenge, but also other strong candidates to apply for prototyping funding, which would be probably an order of magnitude larger, possibly up to $10,000. But that's our plan at the moment, but we haven't got funding confirmed yet for that phase of the project. So we're in active conversations with our funders about that. So so because that's not confirmed, that's why we've launched the project, just the first phase. We're hoping that once the deadline for applications for the pitch challenge is March the 12th. That's the point at which we'll be able to see the range, the quality of applicants that come in for the pitch challenge, and that's the point at which we are hoping to seek confirmation of funding from our funders to fund the second phase. So I hope that answers your question. So we don't have any guarantee that the second phase will take place, but we think that with a reasonably successful cohort of strong applicants, we will move to a prototyping phase. Great. Okay. Any other questions? I should say too that the prize, we chose the $1,000 prize because we feel that it's a large enough sum of money to provide an incentive for people to participate in the pitch challenge, because we know the pitch challenge in itself might take a couple of hours work of preparation, but we've tried to keep the challenge as simple as possible, because we know that people's resources are very constrained, and that $1,000 is also a relatively small amount of money when it comes to delivering a project. Well, I should say also, we're hoping as part of the prototyping phase to get funding to take projects that are successful in the application phase of the prototyping phase. We're hoping to get funding to allow them to present their projects at COP26. So that's in November to the end of this year. But again, we don't have confirmation of the funding for that.
Great, thank you, James. There's any final questions from people? Please put them in the chat now. Otherwise, we'll say thank you to everyone. Okay. Okay, so it looks like no questions. So James, do you want to sign off? James, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry. Well, thanks ever so much for coming today. I'm sorry about the weird disturbance at the beginning. Some people obviously are not very busy in their normal life. Again, if you have any questions, check out the website, netzero-challenge.info. Get in touch with us by emailing us at netzero@okfn.org. I want to say thank you very much to Nati for coming to today's meeting. That was a really useful presentation. Really appreciate it. And Stephen, thank you very much for facilitating today's meeting. Great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.